Hello everybody and welcome back to the DGS. We have just finished pressing on Beppo, and in the middle of pressing Beppo, Fairplay had a little bit of a moment there, so we're gonna find out what the heck he was getting all worked up over. Fairplay's son is getting riled up. Depending on how I respond here, I may be able to drag out some new information out of him. I just happened to witness the exact moment of the crime. I wonder. There's no way it happens. There's no way. Oh, no, there goes my stylus. Sorry. Well, I must agree that it hardly seems likely. It'd be a different matter if you'd been peeping in through the skylight at your feet from the upper deck seats the whole time, though. Peeping? A city banker? I, as a banker, remember it clearly. The horrific sight I saw that night. Very well then, witness. Yes, Your Honor. Add the sight that's been burned into your memory to your testimony. Yes, I suppose I'd better. Will do. Okay, Mr. Banker. Way the blood stained both his hands after stabbing the victim. How could I forget such a thing? Did you say bloodstain? Well, perhaps stain was a bit exaggeration. But in any case, both of his left and right hands had blood on them. And you saw this through the skylight? That skylight is a fairly decent size. On top of that, the lamps inside the carriage were shining brightly, so it was quite visible. What's going on here? This new statement. I can't help feeling like there's something not quite right about it. At times like these, such as in this case, perhaps it would be a good idea to check the court record. There is a problem here because, I do not have the dialogue for this. How there was blood on both his hands, that can't be right, considering... If we look at his gloves, blood stained both his hands. But perhaps stain was a bit of an exaggeration. But in any case, both of his hands had quite a bit of blood on them. Of that, I'm certain. I'm sorry, but that strikes me as rather strange. Dude, what is with that smug pose? Look at that smug pose of freaking Naruhodō. Eh? These are the gloves Mangeldal-san was wearing that night. Gloves? It's true that there's a darkest stain on them. But as you can see, the blood stain is only on the right hand. Ugh. I'm sorry, that animation. It's like a freaking chipmunk. In other words, Fairplay-san, it contradicts your testimony. Ugh. You're lying. That shouldn't be.
Sounds to me like you're the liar here.
That's right! You were pretty clear about it.
Fairplay-san, if your words just now have been false, then it calls your entire testimony into question. I saw the moment that the defendant stabbed the victim. Is that true? Well. Everyone makes mistakes. You cannot label those mistakes lies. It's true that it was only one hand instead of both, but either way, the fact that there is a blood stain on them hasn't changed. However, Fairplay-san testified that there could be no doubt about it. In other words, it's possible that this witness was intentionally misleading us. I say. Why would I, a city banker, have to do such a thing? I'm an upstanding gentleman, and as such, I have nothing to be ashamed of. Do you? Before we continue, let's look at the ledger again. Actually examine the ledger now. This ledger is stuffed with Englishmen's secrets. Huh. I wonder if it's really alright for us to snoop in here. Well, it's not as if we know many English gentlemen anyway. Aside from that famous detective. What if... I hope you're not expecting to find Home-sama's name in there. Anyway, let's see what's inside. It's chock full of names of English gentlemen. Well, I'm not sure about the gentleman part. It may be in Great Britain, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone here lives in luxury. Oh! But what's wrong? Please, look here. This name. Oscar Fairplay. Who's that again? Naruhodō, we're talking to him! I feel like I've heard that name before. It's one of the gentlemen on the witness stand right now. That banker? What's his name doing in here? 20 guinea loan, huh? His payback date is coming right up, isn't it? It may be a coincidence, but let's make a note of it just to be sure. Oscar Fairplay's name appears among the list of people who borrow money from the defendant. His payback date is nearly here. Alright. What we needed to do... Fairplay-san has no reason to lie. Is that really true? Naruhodō-sama, if you are able to prove that the man has a reason to lie, I believe it would completely alter the flow of this trial. Evidence that points to a reason that he lied in his eyewitness testimony. I don't have proof. I have proof. Your Honor. What is it, defense? The defense is prepared to present evidence. Well, evidence, you say? Evidence that this witness has a reason to give false testimony about Naruhodō-san. What? Very well. The court requests that the defense present this evidence. Evidence that indicates a possibility that the witness gave false testimony. Let's present that ledger. This is the defendant, Mr. Naruhodō's customer ledger. It's a list of London citizens that are struggling under the burden of high interest loans. And among these suffering Londoners, your name appears. Oscar Fairplay-san. What? Witness, did you take out a loan with the defendant? No. Well, I'm not sure it was enough to be considered a loan. 20 guineas, dude! The amount was 20 guineas. That's a fairly sizable amount, isn't it? So what if I did? Let's say that Naruhodō-san was found guilty of murder. What would happen to that loan? According to this document, it seems that the defendants loaned him the money as an individual. Meaning that if the defendant were to receive the death penalty, all his transactions would be nullified and all debts to him voided. Voided? Tell me, Fairplay-san, could you perhaps have given a made-up eyewitness testimony in order to have your 20 guinea debt voided? Gah! Welp. Order! Oscar Fairplay. Yes. Allow me to confirm this with you one last time. Be aware that the answer you give will have a profound effect upon your fate. Did you actually witness the exact moment that the defendant used the murder weapon to stab the victim? This man. That silence tells us everything we need to know. You weren't testifying truthfully. One moment, please. It's true that, I may have exaggerated a smidge. A smidge? However, at the very least, I definitely saw that both the killer's hands had blood on them. However, these reveal the truth. There's only blood on one hand. Be that as it may. May I have a moment? What is it, Lady First Son? Mr. Lady First. Not calling him son, because this is an English judge. Actually, I'm pretty sure I saw the same thing. What thing? The blood, you know, on the defendant's hands. I'm fairly certain it was on both of them. Eh? Eh? How? Excuse me? It seems that we need to hear testimony one more time about what these witnesses really saw or didn't see. Is that clear? Yes. Naruhodō-sama, it seems that the tides have changed a bit. Yeah, you're right. Maybe this will finally be my chance to make my counterstrike. Witness testimony! What we really saw. And the music has picked up. Both of the murderer's hands had blood on them, it's true. I clearly saw it. But as for the moment that the defendant stabbed the victim, I suppose you could say I did see it. The knife used to stab the victim, and the blood on both the killer's hands. I also remember that. Aside from hearing the scream from the upper deck, I didn't see anything. Oh. Either way, if there had been any other passengers on the carriage, I'm certain we would have seen them. What to say to that? Witness, you didn't see the moment of the crime. My deepest apologies, but Your Honor, there were no other passengers in the carriage, and there was blood staining both the killer's hands. I figured that having seen that was just as good as having seen the critical moment. Good sir, are you trying to break your cane? No, it's not just as good. I'd like to have the court check the interior of the omnibus one more time. Just as the witness testimony specified, the seat is stained by traces of blood from the crime. In other words, the circumstances have not changed in any significant way. Now then, defense, your cross-examination. Yes, Your Honor. Getting more and more confident as the case goes on, if you noticed. Kinda adorable. Alright, let's press on things. However, the fact remains that they weren't. That's proven by the defendant's gloves. Well, yes, I know, but even so. That doesn't change what I saw. Both of his hands had blood on them. For him to keep insisting on that in spite of the evidence, it bothers me to just dismiss it as a simple mistake. What worthless reasoning. Whether it was both hands or just one, the most important point hasn't changed. The fact that right after the crime, there was blood on the victim's hands. Don't try to gloss over this with vague phrasing like that. You saw the moment the crime occurred. Surely you must understand the gravity of those words. But... I can't think of anyone else who could have committed the crime. I was only trying to save us all a bit of time and effort. You took out a loan of 20 guineas from the defendant, correct? You wouldn't be trying to get the defendant declared guilty so that your debt would be wiped out, would you? Well... Don't be ridiculous! Of course not! I only took a wee bit of major loss at the horse races. I plan to win it all back at the races this weekend and repay my debt. Right. A wee bit of major loss, huh? I'm a banker. Borrowing a bit of spending money for the weekend is a simple matter. I feel like you've just voiced an incredibly problematic opinion. Let us set aside this man's dangerous ideas for the time being. Next witness, continue the testimony. Are you sure that's a good idea? You saw it as well. Blood on both his hands. Yes, I mean, I know. There was only blood left on one of Mr. Mangadal's gloves. That's correct. But for starters, according to my memory, Mr. Mangadal wasn't wearing gloves when he was sitting beside the victim. He wasn't wearing these gloves? Oh shit. Right. I think that's why I was able to see the blood so clearly. Got a point. The bloodstain is dark on the leather and kind of hard to see. Incidentally, that night when the officer restrained the defendant at the scene of the crime, there were no traces of blood on his hands when the gloves were removed. That's what was reported. No blood on Mangadal-san's hands. That's quite curious. There must be something there. Maybe. You didn't see anything? Yes, that's right. I'm sorry about my testimony earlier. Yes. Giving half-baked statements like, I saw the stabbing happened. Right, sir? Well, I didn't give a half-baked testimony on purpose. But surely you didn't really see nothing. Oh, it's quite true. Didn't see a thing, nope. No, for example, you were the one driving the carriage, so... At the very least, you must have seen the London cityscape. Oh my god, Naruhodō, that doesn't matter right now! Wait. Are you saying you didn't see that either? It was so cold that night, it'd make a bloke pass out. A good part of my brains even froze up there in the driver's seat, yes. Oh my god, this poor man. It would seem that it would be in everyone's best interest not to ride the final omnibus of the night in the dead of winter.
Beppo!
Oh, poor Beppo, though! I feel him, man. You witnessed the murder from the seats on the upper deck, right? Yes, that's right. I felt as though I froze into the seat. Yes, I witnessed it while shivering in the cold. For starters, what made you choose to sit on the upper deck? Well, you see, I couldn't get into the carriage. You couldn't get in? And why was that? That carriage was locked from the inside. Even when I knocked, they wouldn't open it for me. Locked? That's right! The door of this public transport vehicle was locked from the inside. The sheer cheek! I had the same problem. When I knocked, the passengers inside made gestures to shoo me away. That's why we had to sit on the upper deck and look down into the carriage. No, perhaps it would be more accurate to say that we glared into it. And it's because of that that we can say this so decisively. There had been another passenger in the carriage. We definitely would have seen them. Stating the obvious, I wonder about that bit of testimony those two just gave. about being able to see everything inside the carriage to the skylight. They could have seen everything. It's possible there were parts they couldn't see. The second one that they couldn't see. Fair play, San. Please confirm this for me once more. On this omnibus, you witnessed the murder while sitting in the upper deck seats and looking down through the skylight, correct? Yes, precisely. In that case, it seems that there are some places within the carriage seating that you wouldn't be able to see. What? That's ridiculous. It's true that at this moment I can't say this with complete certainty, but when the murder occurred, it's possible that there was another passenger in the omnibus. We have no need for meaningless dispute here, Oriental Defense Attorney. It seems that we'll need to indicate it directly yourself. After all, the scene of the crime is right before us. Very well. In that case, the court would like to ask the defense to point out the area on this diagram of the omnibus. Somewhere inside this carriage, where the other passenger could have been. The right seat. Duh. The upper deck seats are arranged facing forward. On the other hand, the seats inside the carriage are arranged so that they face each other. So in that case, the scope of vision that can be seen by a passenger riding in the upper deck seats by looking down through the skylight is like this. Oh! Indeed, as you can see, they wouldn't be able to see anyone sitting across from the victim and the murderer. In other words, if there were a passenger in that seat, it's possible that these witnesses have overlooked them. It's possible that someone could have been sitting there, you say. It seems that your nation employs the foul practice of escaping through vagueness. Indeed, here in the British court system, proof is everything. Evidence is everything. At the very least, let me see. The mystery passenger that you insist was there. It would be an entirely different matter if you were prepared to give the name of that person. What do you think, Naruhodō-sama? I wonder, do I have an idea who it could have been? This person, sitting in the seat in the witness blind spot. I have an idea, I have no idea. I have an idea. Understood. The defense would like to present the person's name. Oh boy, time to drink some wine. Foolish. For a person who doesn't even know his place to think he could provide an answer. I hope you understand how dearly it will cost you. In that case, the court would like to hear the defense's answer. This is just the chance I've been waiting for, to strike back. That night, when the murder occurred, the person who was likely in the seat in that blind spot was... Well, let's try Mango. The passenger that those two overlooked from their seats on the upper deck. Couldn't it have been Cosne Mango-san? Cosne? Mango. That's... Isn't that the defendant himself? And now we're throwing the chalice into the fire. I beg your indulgence for my offensive shattering of the Lord's chalice here in this garden of judgment. Lord von Zeeks. I was sure that even in that little oriental island country across the sea, there existed something that could be referred to as culture, but it seems that was an overestimation. What do you mean? Listen well, savage country exchange student who knows nothing of logic. Jeez! We're getting really mean here. At the time of the murder, the defendant and the victim were seated side by side. The witnesses testify to that. Wouldn't you say that's an awfully basic premise of this case? And that basic premise may be mistaken. What? The ones sitting next to the victim were Meowzy-san. And that creates an inexplicable contradiction. Contradiction? These, the defendant's gloves. The two witnesses both testified the same thing in this regard. The murderer sitting next to the victim, both his hands were stained with blood. However, the fact is that it simply isn't true. There are traces of blood only on one hand. The important thing to note here, that even when the witnesses were shown this decisive evidence, they didn't alter their testimony. Correct. Even now, these two witnesses still recall clearly that both hands were stained with blood. In other words, their memories must be correct. That's what we can conclude. Beside the victim sat an as of yet unknown third party, and both that person's hands were stained with blood. Just who do you propose this third party was? Naturally, it was the real killer. What's this? The real killer? Order! Just what does this... The fence's assertion is nothing more than an assertion. The witnesses have testified that they clearly saw the defendant. However, Fairplay-san said the following in his testimony. The two of them were both wearing hats, so it wasn't actually possible to see their faces. Yes. It's true, we weren't able to see their faces from the skylight. That's right, they were both wearing hats. As a hatter, I always pay close attention to people's hats. By the way, what sort of hats were they wearing? I can't really remember. Good job! I thought you were supposed to be a hatter. Either way, it's impossible for there to have been a third passenger in the carriage. How can you be so sure? If there was such a person, the defendant himself, Cosney Mango Doll, would have corroborated that. Or could it be that you intend to claim this, that the defendant overlooked the true killer in the carriage with him, or some such? He has a point. There were a third passenger inside that carriage. It's hard to imagine that Mangozel-san wouldn't have been aware of that. Order! I believe there is an unexpectedly simple method of finding out the answer to this problem. You have the defendant, Cosney Mango Doll, testify. What is the prosecution's position on the matter? Naturally, it opposes. And the reason? The defendant should have told the police everything he knew when they were interrogating him. But there may have been some reason that he couldn't talk. Cosney Mango Doll is not like those half-witted small-time scoundrels over there. Ouch! In the event that he did pointlessly conceal this information, We can certainly conclude that he had some goal in doing so.
What is the defense's opinion on this?
Your Honor, should I request that Meowzy-san be allowed to testify for himself? Request, don't request, we are requesting. Want to get to the bottom of this incident, we need to hear what he has to say. The defense asserts the need to hear the defendant's testimony.
What is the jury's opinion on the matter?
Let's see, I'm still thinking about it.
I believe I would like to hear Mr. Megandel's testimony.
Of course! Bring his sorry hide out here, right now!
Thinking about it logically, we should hear what he has to say.
If you're going to do something, see it through to the end. That's the guild's motto.
I would like to hear what the man who donated the park has to say.
Right, I'd like to hear it too. His testimony.
In that case, the court has decided to hear the defendant's testimony. Bailiff, escort the defendant to the stand at once.
With this, maybe we'll finally uncover the truth behind what happened that night.
Now then, the trial shall reconvene. Defendant, have you heard everything that has been said in this court so far? Of course, Your Honor. There are two questions whose answers we seek. The first is,
Cut this track!
was there a third passenger on the omnibus that night as the defense has asserted? The other is, if there was such a person, why did you hide that fact from the police? Good Lord, you're all too good at what you do. I can't hide a thing. I simply can't.
What do you mean, witness?
To tell the truth, I've been agonizing all this time over whether I should mention it.
Meowzy-san,
It's just as my lawyer has stated. That evening in the carriage, there was one more passenger. That's true. There was a third passenger. And I allowed that passenger to escape the scene of the crime.
what? I'm afraid that claim won't pass now, Cosney Meowzy.
Oh, I'm deeply sorry, Lord Baroque Bonzeeks. Why didn't I mention it to the police when I was apprehended? There's actually a very good reason for that. And what would that be? I simply wish to avoid making trouble for this youngster who had nothing to do with the murder in the first place, you see?
What?
If the police were to learn that youngster's existence, surely it would have led us to suspicion, arrest, a trial. I only wanted to avoid that, in hopes of avoiding damaging the heart of this youth with a full life ahead.
Okay, Cosney.
So then, who is this youngster you speak of? I'm afraid I don't know. You don't know? Well, you see, we were simply strangers who happened to share a carriage for a bit that evening.
We haven't the slightest reason to trust what this man says. The prosecution asserts that there is no value in listening to the defendant's testimony at this time.
Oh, perhaps at this very moment, that youth is sitting here in this very courtroom.
Viewing my trial from the spectator seats. What? Whoa! Smoke! Ah! Fire! The courtrooms is burning! Someone, he's getting away! After him! Run him down! It's no good. What the heck is...
Naruhodō-sama, we're in danger. Please, get on the floor.
Bailiff, don't let the defendant escape! Secure the omnibus!
The court is now in emergency recess. Bailiff, apprehend the defendant at once. Everyone else withdraw from the courtroom.
Well then. Suddenly got very exciting in the courtroom. We were dragged forcibly from the courtroom by the bailiffs. The courtroom was utter chaos with everyone scrambling to save themselves. Without any idea as to what had just happened, the trial was temporarily put on hold. And we're getting it to be continued. We went slightly over, but we got really close to be continued, so I figured let's just keep going until we get here, so. Shall continue on with this case in the next next video then. Hopefully things are okay.